Now let's discuss what are the tips and technique of writing a speech. Overview. The purpose of a speech is often to inform or persuade an audience. Speeches are usually written to be spoken directly to an audience and can be used to entertain, influencing the listeners that the viewpoint of the speaker is covered. Speeches can also be used to encourage the audience to take action or to change their behavior in some way, for example, to join a particular school, club, or society, or to recycle more. It depends on the task that is being given to you. The ways you use language and vocabulary, this is important because you are going to follow the register, proper register while you are writing the speech. When writing, the words of a speech will depend on the audience and the purpose you are writing. For example, in a speech to a group of teachers and parents, giving your views on a recent proposal, formal language is most appropriate. So as you can see, these are two boxes, and the tips for writing a speech are given. Language, that is, you have to think about the audience that the speech is for, whether your audience are likely to disagree with what you say, the reason that you are giving this speech, and how you feel about this topic, and how to engage your listeners. You please do pause the video and read each and every point in detail. Then is the organization. Of course, in directed writing question, we have the organization in paragraphs, as we have the word limit 250 to 350. So how you are going to, first of all, when you have done the reading portion, then you have to organize, plan where you want to finish your speech and how will you get there before you start writing. So this is how these are the 3 points, number 1, 2 and 3. An opening that grabs your audience's attention. We are going to discuss the examples. Number 2 is well structured, supported and developed argument. Number 3 is powerful conclusion. Then next point is organize your ideas into paragraphs as appropriate, and last is show the connections between ideas in sentences and paragraphs. Now let's discuss some of the basic features of speech writing. Number 1 is welcome the audience. For example, good morning dear fellows. That is also the format of speech. Then you have to introduce the topic which you are going to elaborate it further. Introduction, aim and purpose of your speech according to the task that is given to you. Then you have to elaborate the content points. Of course, word limit is 250 to 350, so your paragraphs might be 5 to 6. Then you have to use the sentence starters, as you have to follow and adopt the tone and register of a speech. So you have to use certain sentences. For example, let me remind you, who can ever forget, because speech is talking to the audience. Then you have to use anecdotes. We are going to discuss what are anecdotes. Then you have to ask rhetorical questions. We are going to discuss these two, and the last one, skillful techniques, separately, that is a forest technique. Then you have to use emotive language. For example, picture this, a person clad in weird outfit, or you may begin your sentences, the language might be, imagine waking up every day surrounded by fabulous gifts. So you are going to involve your audience. Of course, you are going to focus on the content points, but the language of a speech is different from the others. Then of course it's a language paper, so you have to use a variety of sentences and avoid lengthy sentences. So let's discuss separately what is number 1 is what is an anecdote. An anecdote is a short and often personal or humorous story that is used to illustrate or emphasize a point. It's a brief narrative that adds a human or relatable element to a speech, conversation or writing, helping to make a concept more engaging and memorable. So as you can see on this slide, you can begin your anecdote for one paragraph. You can, because you are going to share a story or a past event, you can use some of the phrases. This reminds me of, as a matter of fact, I'll never forget, I'll always remember, I'll recall the time. So you have to use make a word bank and use them appropriately. Next come the rhetorical questions. A speech is effective and impressive when you are going to use the rhetorical questions. What is a rhetorical question? It is a question asked in order to create a dramatic effect or to make a point, rather to get an answer. For example, the question, "And what time do you call this?" is asked or written merely for effect with no answer expected. So here are some of the examples of rhetorical questions. Remember that these are the questions which we are going to ask in our speech, which the already answer you and the audience already know the answer, but just to have a dramatic effect. So on this slide you can see some of the examples sentences, and one tip is the easiest way to write a rhetorical question is by forming a question right after a statement to mean the opposite of what you said. These are called rhetorical tag questions. For example, "The dinner was good, wasn't it?" So a good presentation technique is the rule of 3. Now let's come to the aphorist technique. We are going to discuss it thoroughly because it is very interesting, and also it's going to help you a lot. So let's discuss what is aphorist technique. Aphorist technique means it is an acronym. So A stands for alliteration, F for facts, O for opinion, R for rhetorical questions, again R for repetition, then emotive, E for emotive language, S for statistics, and T stands for 3 rule of. So this is again a technique which you are going to use. A forest technique is very helpful, and it can make your speech very impressive for the audience, and of course you are going to get better marks. But first you have to understand it, and you are going to have collect and compile some vocabulary, some sentences, some sample sentences. So as you can see on this slide, this is very useful information about what is the last point of acronym of a forest. That is the second last one, that is rule of 3. A good presentation technique is the rule of 3. What is it? The rule of 3 is based on the technique that people tend to remember 3 things in oration. It comes up all the time. So as you can see, these are some of the examples that are taken from the famous quotes of for example, from Shakespeare and other friends, Romans, countrymen. And then you have the rule of 3. You can have the on this slide you can see repetition and breathless sentences. So you can use again some of the sentences of your own. Of course, you're not going to use the copy word to word the famous breathless sentences, or the sentences that are world famous, that are rule of 3, but you can make your own. For example, smiling faces, loving hearts, thinking brains, save energy, save time, save money. So it is not essential that you're going to use it frequently, but in then you are going to evaluate, or you are going to lay emphasis on certain point, you can use this technique. This is going to be very, very helpful for you.
If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and share to receive more videos like this in the future.
Last but not the least, now here is an example speech that is being written, and with the Cambridge examiner's comments on it. And as you can see, the points are given, and the comments, and following all the tips and techniques that we have already learned in our today's lecture about how to write a speech for our directed writing task, that is now in paper 2, section 1. So to do pause the video, read it, and try to follow the tips and technique that we have learned. Thank you. Goodbye.